Well, hello. This is devotional number 10. This one's entitled Two Small Coins, and it's for Luke chapter 21, verses 1 through 4. Jesus looked up and saw rich people putting their gifts into the treasury. He also saw a poor widow put in 2 small copper coins. He said, "Truly I tell you, this poor widow has put in more than all of them, for all of them have contributed out of their abundance. But she, out of her poverty, has put in all she had to live on." Jesus here is, he's sitting outside the temple, and this is in a section where he's been getting lots of questions about his authority, and he's just gotten done talking about all of the scribes who like to walk around in their long robes and devouring widows' houses for the sake of appearance, say long prayers, that he's already condemning the leadership for the way that they treat the widows and orphans. And then he makes a point of noticing this widow who's bringing her 2 copper coins, all she had to live on, she's bringing to put into the treasury. How many people overlooked this woman, or just failed to see her, or thought nothing of the small contribution she was making? She was not making a big deal of this. She wasn't being all loud and flashy about what she was doing. She was very quietly going up and putting in her offering. Jesus sees her, and he sees her fully, not just the action she's doing in that moment, but the circumstance that she's in. And he holds it up to those around him and to all these other people who have looked past her, and so many other people just like her. We need to truly and fully see the widow the way that Jesus did. It's an example of her piety and faith, and I know it gets used a lot at stewardship season, but that's not really what we're talking about here, because not only does it reveal something about the widow, but it reveals something about the situation that she's in and the institution that's around her. The widows and the orphans should be the ones being supported by the treasury, not exploited and giving up all their money to fund this treasury. They should be the ones benefiting from what it has to offer. Jesus isn't so much praising her sacrifice as he is condemning those who fail to notice her and see the predicament that she's in. God doesn't rejoice in us giving up everything. I mean, it's by coercion. If we give up things willingly, that's different. But when we're forced to, that's not something God would look on with favor. Jesus is condemning the very people who have taken advantage of this woman and people like her, especially those who do it in the name of God. I mean, what Jesus is really talking about here is the hypocrisy of the system and of the people who feel righteous in their tithing and in their worship attendance, but they're neglecting this woman and so many others like her in their midst. And what he's doing is he's calling upon us to see her and to care about her and to care about her plight. The point of all this is not sacrificial giving, but community. Who we notice, whose gifts count, and how systems all around us impact each and every person. I mean, we all have very different gifts to give. And I know I've been in places in my life as an adult where financially, my husband and I had very little because of job losses or whatever the circumstances. Financially, I had nothing to give. Now, I had time, I had talents, I had other things that I could give. But in that precise moment, I didn't have any money. And many of us end up in that position where what we have isn't financial, what we have are other resources. And so part of the question is, how do we value those? Because in most cases, we want to talk about the money. We want to talk about the Benjamins, the dollars and cents. But those other gifts are so much, in some ways, even more important. Because that's how we reach people. That's how we truly connect, is with one another, is with those other talents and gifts. All of it's necessary. All of it is part of our resources that we use. But if our system is pushing down the people who are already down, the ones we should be lifting up, then there's a problem in the way we've organized ourselves and in the way we're doing business. We're supposed to be lifting everyone up. We're supposed to be treating everyone the way we want to be treated. And when we don't do that, and when as a society we don't do that, or as a church, or as a community, then we've failed. And so Jesus is pointing out the hypocrisy of people who put huge gifts in the treasury and say their prayers really loud so everyone can hear them and make sure everybody knows they're in their pew on Sunday, and then turn right around and pull widows' houses out from underneath them and kick people out into the streets and don't treat each other with respect and with love. And so he's pointing that out because every gift, no matter how small, is important. But the question we have to ask ourselves is, are we placing importance on all those other gifts and not just the really huge ones? Are we putting our importance on all of them? So here's some questions. Who are the marginalized in your church and in your community? Do you notice them? What can you do to make sure people notice them? Everyone has gifts to share. How do we invite people to share their gifts in ways that are life-giving and not exploitive? How do you decide what is faithful to give to the church or to charity or to individuals? Giving is important. It's an important part of how we respond. But there's so much more to it than just the grand total of dollars at the end. So many things we do in the life of the church couldn't happen without people being willing to give of their time and of their other talents. That's an important part of it. We can't just hire everything out. We can't just, expect people to just empty their pocketbooks in the plate and that'll just cover everything. We need those other talents. We need people to be involved and engaged. That's part of how it all works. And so it's important to remember that all of our gifts are important. But let's make sure that we don't take advantage of people and that we don't, make people's situation even worse by some of the decisions and the choices that we make. I hope you enjoyed this devotional, and there'll be many more to come. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.